Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Comic Book Syndicate. We are here to review some comic books that are going to tie in to the last superhero movie of 2020. And these comics are going to feature Wonder Woman. And we've got our pal G.I. Jolie joining us here in St. Thomas, right, Jolie?
Yes, that is where I am from.
That's right.
Now,
So we're here basically for people who they want to get they want to read Wonder Woman, but the thing about most DC and Marvel superheroes is they span so many decades, right? That I mean, sometimes you want to just jump into the new stuff, but sometimes you want to get kind of like a background of what the character is, right? So, if you want to go back to the very, very beginning of Wonder Woman, was introduced in a comic called All Star Comics, number 8. All Star Comics had already been going on. It featured the Justice Society of America, which was all of DC's superheroes teamed up into one big team. And then with number 8, this was a completely unrelated story. They introduced Wonder Woman, which she wasn't the first female superhero, but she was certainly something different. Created by William Moulton Marsden and H.G. Peter. You know, we're not going to talk about the history. There's this huge, fascinating history with Marsden. He was a creator of the original form of the lie detector, and he had an experimental relationship with 2 women at the same time, but we won't go into that. But there's certainly some influence from his personal life into the character. But I've read All Star Comics number 8 several times. The origin story that you see in the movie is all there. Diana lives on a Paradise Island. Steve Trevor crashes his plane there. Wonder Woman has to go to Man's World to help him fight a war. But there's some some interesting stuff in there. G.I. Jolie, what was your impression of All Star Comics number 8?
I liked it. It was easy. It was, for the most part, it was easy to follow. The language is very overwrought with extra words. It could be, but I mean, it's a product of its time. So the writing is, it's just it's cut and it's dry. It's like A, B, C, D. Everything falls into place. It's not convoluted. It's not. It doesn't overburden the reader with an abundance of too much. Like, you find out who the Amazons are. You find out who. Where they live and sort of like what it is that they're doing, characters' names, basic superpowers or basic things that they are enable them to live the way that they do, and then they introduce the characters that you need to see, and it's just a good story.
I agree. And, modern fans might find these Golden Age comics a little bit primitive, like the art style is drastically different from what you'd see today. The writing is different. You could argue that it was more so intended for children, which is fine. But I find these Golden Age stories, for lack of a better word, they're potent and they're primal. And there was a lot of really cool ideas here. I mean, the combination of Wonder Woman, Diana, living on this island, and Steve Trevor crashing on the island. One thing I want to point out about this first issue here is that there's actually a huge section that was just in text, a page and a half just in text, which was really unusual at the time. I thought that was interesting. Again, it's not something I necessarily think that comic books should do because I think it's more of a visual medium, but it's just something to take note of. Overall, I thought even though the art by H.G. Peter is a little bit primitive, I thought it was perfect for Wonder Woman because to me, Diana looks almost like a pinup girl in this, like Betty Page or something. Like, did you like the way that he drew Diana in this?
I like the way that he drew all of the women. You because they're a race of women that maybe we weren't accustomed to. They're or accustomed to seeing. Like, no one made funny books about like what would have been considered scantily clad women, but they are just wearing outfits that allow them to move, that allow their muscles to breathe, and they wouldn't sexualize themselves because they're a race of quote women or Amazons. So yeah, I just it's the hairstyles that kind of are strange to me, but that's always very telling of the time period in which things are written. If you're able to see illustrations that show you the hair, you can tell where it's from, because usually an artist will retain what's familiar, which is current trends like collars and the shapes of collars and things like women's hair. So had this been had her origins taken place in the 2020, oh my goodness, the 2020s, her hair may be much different than we see here. And that's why she kind of has like this Betty Page look to her. It
Right.
looks a lot like bondage gear, which again is a product of Moulton's personal life.
Right. So there's definitely, if you're going to read Golden Age Wonder Woman, there's definitely a plethora of bondage, of women, being captured, tied up, spanked. So at the very least, this is, again, I guess for lack of a better word, it's potent, it's primal. There's something to it, especially underneath the surface. And
it's like reading mythology.
Yes, 100%. I think the subconscious is certainly at work here, especially the fact that Marsden was a psychologist. And so, do yourself a favor. Don't skip this era. If you want to find out what Wonder Woman is all about, you've got to read this period. And these comics are all available in Wonder Woman archives. You can get these pretty much at any comic book store. You can get them at Comixology. They're very readily available in many different formats. So I certainly recommend reading All-Star Comics #8.